There we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Meet the Specialists. I am Alicia Wilkins, and I'm sitting here with Vernon Parent, and I'm super excited because Vernon is one of my first kind of mentors when I joined Extension. So it's kind of fun to circle back around, and we're doing different things now. But
Way to
it's
make me feel really old.
okay. Well, it's only been 5 years. Well, yeah, 5 years since I started as a staff assistant slash
Okay.
coordinator, and so you're not that old quite yet. But I'm really excited to talk to Vernon today about 4-H. A lot of you guys might know, or maybe you don't know, that October is actually kind of 4-H month, right? Like nationwide, they promote it. They're getting people excited about it. We're talking about it. And the purpose of our conversation is to just talk about 4-H, talk about the benefits, and then specifically to get into kind of what Vernon does, because it's unique to what you might think about 4-H, right? So let's just get started. Vernon, I just want to do some rapid fire questions. We're just going to get
Sure,
to
go
it
for it.
quickly. So, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Sunnyvale, California. That's the South Bay area of San Francisco, what people know as Silicon Valley.
Oh, okay. So was it as exploding when you were there as it is
Oh,
now?
yeah. I mean, my dad was an electrical engineer. My high school was the second high school in the world to have computers, Apple IIe's. I was the cutting edge of technology. Loved the coast, loved the scenery. Too many people. I had to get out of California. It was a little crazy. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so do you have any pets?
I do. I have a pet bear. He's a dog. He's a rescue dog. He's amazing. I love him. He's obedient, does everything I ask. Well, unless there's cats around, and then they're not so obedient. But other than that, pretty good.
Awesome. Favorite flavor of Aggie ice cream?
Ooh. Um, you know what? Uh, what is it? True Aggie Night, or
Mhm.
yeah, I love the raspberry and the dark chocolate.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so if you are on a desert island, what would be your books or movies? You can pick.
A specific book and a specific movie.
Or your top three books or top three movies.
All right. I think that entertainment is to have us move away from the reality, especially if I was on a desert isle all by myself. I'd want to like leave that world. So I would definitely go fantasy. I would probably go um, either with like maybe a Brandon Sanderson novel, which I don't know if too many people know those, or maybe a Lord of the Rings type book. I'd go those, and probably favorite movie. I would probably go for the Star Wars series. I am totally a geeky guy that way. So
Well, that my husband just made me rewatch the extended cut Lord of the Rings, and I watched them before, but this time I actually enjoyed them. And I was
well, good.
like, you're being converted. I'm so proud.
It's growing on you.
Okay, so what's one fact about you that people might not know?
um I love the outdoors. I love to rock climb and climb. I've done so in most of the states of the United States. I used to climb mountains all the time and ice climb up at the top of mountains. So I like that kind of challenge, the exhilaration. When you reach the top and you look out over a thing and the clouds are below you, that is just it. There's just a feeling. It's just amazing.
I love that. And you kind of already talked about this, but what's another way you like to spend your time when you're not working?
I like to do woodworking. I've been building up a shop, slowly acquiring pieces of equipment. My wife is finally committed that I get to have a detached shop because she's tired of sawdust on her car after she washes it. So I like doing woodworking. Yeah, I like to build things.
Well, my brother-in-law built me a cookbook stand, and it's like
Oh,
one of
fun. Yeah.
my favorite things. All right, so let's kind of get into your career. How long have you been with USU? And maybe just explain what it is you do for Extension and 4-H.
Okay. So I started Extension in January 2nd of 2000. And I remember that date because I got hired right before Christmas. One of my Christmas vacation came back out of Christmas and started at the turn of the millennium. And it was huge because Y2K and all this kind of stuff was happening. And so I remember pretty clearly my start date. And I started down in St. George, Washington County, as an agriculture and 4-H extension agent. My background is in range science and invasive plant species. So I worked with the ranchers and farmers down there. And my career expanded. I did not know anything about 4-H. I'd done youth programming as a young uh, high schooler. I belonged to a near peer mentoring group where we did environmental education for kids out of Oakland and San Francisco. And they'd come down to the place we worked at, and the only trees they'd ever seen were with metal grates around them. And we'd get them into the tidal pools and have them touch sea creatures and then go up into the woods. And I loved that stuff. And then when I went into college, I also did a lot of youth programming. Then I went into the Forest Service and the Park Service and eventually moved into extension, thinking I wanted to work with people and educate people about natural resources and range science, and loved doing that with the ranchers and farmers, but met 4-H for the first time and said, wow, this is cool. And I love working with youth. And I started what was called the Dixie Tech Team. And so we were like the cutting edge of technology. And we did the really old robots that were yellow bricks. And we did all the cool technology back then. And that, I mean, all my brothers are engineers. I grew up in technology where I grew up. And so I have it's a passion of mine. It's fun, but it's not what I like to do full time. And so I got into youth, and then I started developing youth leadership. And it's like, wow, I love working with youth and building their skills and their leadership abilities. And I got to do all my cooking stuff. I used to be a saute chef in another life, and I got to cook, and I learned how to sew and do mitered corners. And I mean, 4-H for me was a whole new explosion of information that I could develop my own talents and skills. And so I fell in love with 4-H. So my main responsibility and education was in basically ranch management and rangeland sciences and stuff. But I fell in love with 4-H. And so as I progressed through that experience, I took on more and more 4-H responsibilities and less ag until I reached a point 11 years into my career with Extension. They asked me to move up to Salt Lake and take on full-time 4-H responsibilities. And so I moved up to Salt Lake in 2011 and took on that role. And then in 2019, they asked me to move to the state 4-H, taking on responsibilities for youth leadership and civic education. And that's what I do today.
Awesome. And 2019 is when I started as a coordinator. So that you've always just been this tour. So tell me, okay, you said civic engagement. What is civic engagement? Like that sounds like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting term. I think that the simplest way to explain civic engagement is having the youth become better citizens. What does that mean? It can mean government education. Like, for example, I work with youth city councils across the state and individuals who want to learn about government. Yes, it can be that. But it's more than that. It's how to become a better citizen. And so a lot of that involves service learning. How do we take our own personal skills, evaluate our own personal skills, develop our own personal skills, then take those skills and find like-minded people, create a common shared vision of what we want to accomplish. It doesn't matter if it's potholes or we want to improve parks or kids need a skate park or whatever that shared vision is, and then go out into the community, taking your personal to teamwork to community and find collaborative partners and go out and make a difference. I'm a firm believer that we're not trying to develop the leaders of tomorrow. We are trying to empower the leaders of today. There's so many examples of youth, both on social media throughout the world, more so than when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I had a very small voice. It was whatever people could hear from me, and I have a loud voice. So, I mean, I might have had a small group of people in high school that listened to Vernon Parent, but now with social media, one small person can reach millions, if not billions of people. And that voice can be powerful. And so what civic engagement means is how do we provide the tools, experiences, opportunities to learn, and then empowerment for the youth to go out and say, hey, I can make a change today. And we do that usually through a service learning experience where they have the opportunity to identify a need, go out and find collaborative partners, plan an event or an experience, do the event, say, we're going to do this, reflect on it, and then bring it back and say, hey, those of you that helped us, this is what we accomplished. This is the impact we made. This is what we learned from it. This is how it changed the community. And if we can do that, that's just, it's so empowering. Youth today have so many opportunities to make a difference. And adults, we're we've already we're already moving. We've got our careers, we've got family, we're busy. We ask adults to serve, and many of us do, but the reality is we're very limited. We have limited bandwidth. Youth, if they have a passion, man, they will dedicate their whole life to it, and they just go full blast, and they are just awesome. And so what is civic engagement? It's youth being empowered to change the world. That's what that means.
I think that's incredible. So I don't know. I just think that sometimes, like you said, youth, maybe they feel like because they're like a minor or they're not, they're like, I can't vote or I can't make changes. I think that when they come together, they actually can make powerful things happen. So can you tell me about one that you've seen in your experience?
Sure. We had an experience down and this is funny. I say we. Currently, I live vicariously through all the rest of the coordinators in the state because I now run state programs, and so sure I have my own program I run, but all of that is to support other youth councils, and so my job is to go into youth councils and help them out, and so I'm living vicariously through everybody else who's actually working with the youth directly, and so I say we. I'm just a subsidiary part of the whole process, but we teach them the process and then help them go. So we had an experience in Sevier County where they do a food drive every year, and it's a powerful thing. They bring in a lot of money. It's a great service project where they get food for the community. And we were like, how do we take this to the next level and make it more than just a project? How do we make it more of a civic engagement, or how do we make more of a service learning experience? And worked with some amazing people down there. They're just so talented. And one of the youth came across this thing where they found out that there's this project where the kids get a little backpack where they have stuff over the weekend. A lot of times they have food services during the week. They get free breakfast or free lunch at school. And that's important. But what happens over the weekend? And so this kid's like, hey, what about the weekend? Found out that there's this opportunity to develop backpacks and be able to put school supplies and food and snacks in those backpacks. And the kids just went on fire, and they started producing thousands of these backpacks to totally help the kids in the community. That is powerful. That is awesome. And it was kid driven. I think that's super cool.
So they took what was kind of let's do a food drive, and they just expanded it into something that had greater impact, honestly.
For sure. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Made a difference in so many kids' lives.
Do you feel like having kids help their peers like makes them more I guess engaged in the project? Because it's like these are like people our age who are going through something really hard. So it kind of gets themselves out of themselves. I don't know.
Oh yeah. So all right, I am a professor of the university, so I'm now going to profess for a moment and step on my little soapbox, right? So we like to not just do programs that feel good, but we like to do programs that show that we can measure marked impact. How is this changing lives? The reality is that right now, in the age group of 10 to 17, suicide is the number one issue facing youth. That's the number one death in Utah. 18 to 24, suicide is the number one cause of death in Utah. 24 to 35 is the number two cause of death. We have a huge problem with depression, anxiety, and suicide. And the biggest reason is a lack of resilience. For some reason, COVID and social media and a lot of other pressures that are existing today are just really decimating the resilience of our youth, their ability to fall and feel like they can bounce back up and get up and continue on. They just fall and they're like, I don't want to go on. And they just spiral down. It's a huge problem. And so you bring up this idea of working with their peers. We call it near peer mentoring. And near peer mentoring and service learning are two of the top things that build resiliency in youth. And so those opportunities, when they work with other kids, they find value in themselves. They're working with somebody, they see those smiles, they see the other kid experiencing, wow, you care about me. And that reflects back on the individual. And those youth are like, I made a difference for this one. And the reality is this: a lot of times, those people who have those anxieties and depressions and lack resilience, they feel like they have no value. And so when we provide those opportunities for near peer mentoring where they can go and see that they do have value, it makes a huge difference. I mean, significant research-based difference on their ability to overcome troubles. Yes, it's important for caring adults, parents, friends, church leaders to say, we love you, you have value. But that's not quite the same as if they go out and experience for themselves and they have these experiences where they're like, wow, I do have value, and it's self-identified, and they see that, especially with their peers. The reality is I'm a old white guy, and I can share with them validation, and I can share with them my love for them, and it's But if they have a peer express that same validation and that love, even to half the extent, it has a 10 times level impact on that youth. So how important is those near peer experiences? Positive near peer experiences, huge.
So it's almost, you can correct me, it's like the opposite of it's like anti-bullying. It's like, let's figure out a way that we can all work together. And
yeah, it's what we call civic or community engagement.
I love it. How about just being nice to each other?
Yeah.
Do you feel like, or have you ever seen maybe a group come together that you would not have expected to work well?
Okay, just the other day, it's interesting. Well, I don't know, that's great. I'm just going to share it anyways. We had a training just last week, and I have been trying to reach out outside of 4-H and expand our impact, because I think what we have to share and the best practices and research and the way you do things can impact a lot of kids. And 4-H is great. It's a great program, but not everybody knows what 4-H is. They think it's for cows and horses, and they don't realize that it is the largest youth organization in the nation. And they don't realize that we do STEM and youth leadership, and we're solving problems in all kinds of different ways. And so people, it's crazy. They'll go like, well, we appreciate that you're with the university and you're with 4-H, but do you have any like best practices, or do you work with any of the large youth organizations like Boys and Girls Clubs or something like that? And I'm like, that's funny, because we are 4 times the size of that organization, and we oftentimes do trainings for them. And people just don't realize that 4-H is hidden. And so we're outreaching, we're trying to work with other people. And I have been blessed with the opportunity to work with youth city councils, which I think is amazing. And then we also work with other youth councils. Sometimes they're with libraries, sometimes they're with community outreach groups, prevention groups, other things like that. And we brought together a group of those individuals on this last week and did a 4-hour training with them. And we intentionalized it. We made it all research-based as far as how we did things. And they did not know each other. I think there was like maybe 2 or 3 people in the room that knew each other. And throughout the whole experience with them, the whole purpose, I keep bouncing all over the place. This is the problem with ADHD, by the way, is that we need to build a sense of belonging. It's one of the huge things that builds resilience in people. And so we're trying to model that with these adults. At the end of this training, they were from all over, from far-reaching parts of Utah, came together. And at the end, they requested that we have a group picture. I have never had that in a training before. We're going to do a group picture at the end of this training. This is a little weird, but it was awesome because they built that sense of belonging in 4 hours. We were modeling, this is how you train the teens. This is how you work with the teens. And it worked with the adults. And I think that, it's really funny. I'm being spontaneous, going off the tracks again. But 4-H was created by adults trying to reach out to farmers, extension agents, saying, hey, we want to improve your land. And they're like, get off my land, government man. And so they're like, let's work with the kids. Started working with the kids. And the purpose to work with the kids was, we'll train the kids and the parents will see from the kids what they can learn. And that's how 4-H started. And I see that time and time again, where parents or adults are too busy. They've got their track, they have those sunglasses on, they're moving a certain direction, and they think that that is correct. And then youth are willing to accept new ideas. They're willing to think outside the box. They're willing to be creative and ask some hard questions. And all of a sudden they come up with a new way and a new direction. And the parents and adults go, wow, that's cool. And so while we're developing these experiences for youth, it's just as impactful and just as powerful and can be used just effectively as with adults, as I saw this last week. And I thought that was super cool.
Oh, that's awesome. I think that sense of belonging is something that maybe we've all kind of missed since COVID a little bit. Like adults
Huge.
and youth we were kind of, I mean, you can belong to your family unit and that's important, but like what if your family unit isn't a safe space? What if like being home is not a
Yeah.
sense of belonging? So I think what 4-H and what youth civic engagement really like does is help people to just feel like you said, that internal, like I'm a part of something bigger than myself. And I think we need that in today's world. So let's talk real quick about how do we get people involved in these kind of things? Like if I'm a parent or if I'm a grandparent or a leader, how can I encourage my kids to get involved with something like this? Because you think the typical teenager, right? They're probably like rolling their eyes, or middle schooler. I don't know. How do you start with that?
You have to know the secret handshake.
Oh,
All
well, I'm
right.
about 8 years before my daughter will even be left, so I'm
So, I mean, honestly, when it comes to 4-H, we are one of the best kept secrets. A lot of youth organizations, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, youth, all of those, they are nonprofit organizations, as are we, but we're also government funded. And so a lot of them are fundraising on a continual basis, trying to get their face out there, do a lot of advertising and recognition so that people, we'll give them money. And 4-H, yes, we're fundraising, we're doing those kind of things, but we don't need that as much. We have some federal dollars coming down. We have I'm a state employee. I work for the university. And so we have other funding sources, which allows us to focus less on recruitment and advertising. And it gives us some flexibility that way. So people oftentimes don't hear or see about us on the TV or the news that much. We just kind of do the quiet work that needs to be done. And so I would say that most people find out about us word of mouth. That is probably our number one way. Wow, I saw this. How did you guys do this? Oh, we did this. And they share what 4-H is. We do some social media. That's your job. Social media, get out there and share the word. And this is what we do. And this is what we're trying to accomplish. And then websites and stuff like that. If you out there want to be involved in 4-H, the best way is to go and look at your county extension website, or even go into the county building. Just Google USU extension in your county, and there will be an office in every county in the state, except for maybe Daggett. I don't think Daggett has one. But just go and meet them. We are people that try to train on belonging and welcoming and inviting. And so hopefully that's what you'll receive when you get to the office. That's what we want to see. But we have so many things to offer. And there are opportunities to become involved on a club level. If you want to work just within your family or local neighborhood, we can help organize things. If there's some skills that you want to work on at the county level, even at the state level, and national and even international opportunities and experiences. There are things where you can just be involved and learn how to sew, or you can learn survival skills, or you can learn how to, yes, we do horses and livestock. We'd also have robotics, national robotics teams. And we have state competitions on public speaking and leadership. There's so many opportunities on the local level. but then you can go and do international exchanges and do all kinds of things. So there is such a broad breadth and opportunity there for you, depending on what you want to do. You can dip your toe in, or you can just dive in head first. There's so much opportunity for you, but just go make that relationship and develop that relationship at a local county extension office. That's where you start.
I think that's awesome. So what about people who maybe already run like a student council or a youth council? How can
Okay,
they
excellent. Yeah. So I'm hired by the state to be a public consultant for those organizations. So if you are a library coordinator in Blanding, Utah, and you want to run a teen program, and you're like, I don't even know where to start. Well, first of all, we have a website on youth councils. We have a guidebook that you can read and use as a resource to say, oh, this is how you start a program. This is how you recruit kids. This is how you form officers. This is the kind of meetings that you have. We have that in place. Or you can Zoom with me at any time. Or I travel. I have a travel budget, and I go out and I do face-to-face trainings with the teens and with the adults. And so if you would like to contact me or look at our website, just go USU teen councils or youth councils. It will probably pop up. We have a whole web page of curriculum available for you to see little 15-minute lessons that you can do for life skills, to teach them leadership skills, brainstorming, how to communicate effectively, awareness, and how do you see your audience, crowd management. There's all kinds of stuff available out there for them. But once again, I'm all about relationships and building those relationships. So if you just want to give me a call and let me connect with you and let me show you this great world of youth leadership, that's what I'm here for.
I love that. And he's to work with. I think, I don't know, I was involved in a band council in high school. I did 4-H up until about my sophomore year, and it just got, anyway, but I was involved in a band council, and I truly learned so much about myself and working with peers. And even though it wasn't in 4-H, I still think having that like leadership opportunity is,
Oh yeah.
And my leader, like my band director was, I mean, I don't know if he had any formal training, but he just did such a good job at like teaching us principles and then having us lead the band and be in charge of sections and be in charge of, like, it felt so good. And anyway, so
I just want to make a comment about that, Alicia.
Yeah.
Teachers are great. I love what they do. And they impact every single one of our lives. And they've been trained a lot on intentionality. And that is what this program is all about. Is there's a lot of things that adults do kind of because it feels right, or I think that'll work, or I've seen it work, so I'm going to kind of replicate that. And we do that. Teachers have been trained, they've been taught a little bit more and say, oh, we need to intentionalize that. But my job is full-time looking at the research, developing grants to fund and implement programs where we're doing youth leadership. So think of me as like a teacher on steroids in this one specific subject in youth leadership. And we go in and we teach people how to take what your band teacher was doing kind of because of their training, because of their skill, and even improve on that and intentionalize what does that youth leadership look like. And look, you're doing an amazing job here, but I bet we can improve it by doing this or this best practice. And so that is my job, is to be a public consultant to anybody who's working with youth leadership or civic engagement and wants to improve their program, even if it's just a little bit. I bet there's something we can do to help you.
Oh, I love that. You're a train the trainer kind of situation.
For sure. Right? I mean, that's not my happy place. My happy place is hanging out with the kids for sure. But yes, we do what we do.
No, I love that. And it's awesome because it's research backed, right? It's not just kind of fluffy, like this is what Vernon thinks is going to work. No, this is what we know.
That's what the advantage of being part of. And people, I don't think understand that 4-H, the basic principles and the best practices comes from research. We have a lot of money invested in research, and we have a lot of people invested in research, and we develop a lot of things that just polish up those things that I think come naturally to really good teachers and those that work with youth. A lot of them are natural skills. And what we want to do is intentionalize and just take things to that next level. And that's what that research is for.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else you want to add to this, or call to action for people to come.
You know what? I would say that my call to action is this. Don't the probably the number one limiting factor in a child's life has nothing to do with their environment, how much food they have, what housing assignment they live in, it, what clothes they wear. That's not as big of a, those can be limiting factors, they can be huge, but that's not as big of a limiting factor as the adults in their lives limiting what they can do. We have the ability to empower kids to be more, or we can shut them down by our actions and how we treat them. And my call to action would be a builder. Get out of the way. They think differently from you. Allow some of those weeds in their garden to grow, because who knows, that weed might turn out to be a spark of innovation that turns out to be the next cure for XYZ, or the next ability to do what in engineering. And too oftentimes we go, oh no, that's not correct. And we prevent kids from experiencing or having those opportunities. So my call to action is be a builder, provide opportunities for growth, and don't be an inhibitor.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, great. Thank you to everybody who is watching us. I've put links in the comments on Facebook if you want to see things. And then if you're watching the recording later, those links will also be in the YouTube link description. And this video is going to be on our socials on YouTube, so people can come back and watch it. Or if you need a pitch for something, just out here. So thanks to everybody on Facebook.
Bye.
Let's see, there it went.